Microsoft.
Mr. Microsoft. Shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Get the right deck up there. You guys are here for the XAML session, right? Yes. Carl's like, what's XAML? How do you spell that? Z-A-M-L? Welcome to Building Your First Game with Unity. I'm Adam Tuliper, a tech evangelist with Microsoft. You can find me at adamt@microsoft.com. It's an easy email address to remember. Any questions you have on today's session or working with Unity, please feel free to reach out to me. We're all here to help. And I'm here with my good friend Carl Callewaert from Unity. Tell us about yourself a bit.
Hi, I'm Carl Callewaert. I work as a product evangelist at Unity Technologies. Today, I'm actually super excited to be here at Microsoft and Unity. We have a great partnership that allowed us actually to give the full add-ons for free for the Windows 8. But what I'm really excited about it is actually, like you, I like to make rich interactive content. I like to make games. And that's why I'm going to show you today how I make my own game. I'm still working on it. But from begin to end, I want to share that with you. As a product evangelist, there's no great excitement for me than to show and to meet with our community and see later on your games also on the Windows Store.
You're going to learn that today you can do some really, really powerful things real easily with Unity. I hopped on the Unity probably less than a year ago and it just made sense, dove right in. So hopefully some of the things Carl's going to demo today will kind of get you down that path. We're going to be having Carl creating the game. He's going to show you beginning to end, audio, how to create this cool looking little runner. And then I'll show you how to export from Unity to run onto Windows Phone and Windows 8, how to integrate with the platform-specific features, and then how to publish your application. Just a couple little things to know, since probably a lot of folks in this room already know how to publish an app. And this is what we're going to create today. We can call it, I don't know, Flappy Yeti, or got any good names?
Yeti and the Mushrooms.
What?
Yeti and the Mushrooms.
Yeti and the Mushrooms.
Hey, it's my game. It's my title.
That's right. Whatever you want to call it.
I'm the designer.
All right, let me switch over here, and it's all yours.
So here we can see the little game. We see the software Unity. But before I continue, who is new to Unity? Raise your hand. Fantastic.
So hold on a sec. Who has used Unity?
Fantastic. Even better. So the benefit of listening to my presentation and watching what I do is that you will see how easy it is to become a successful game developer. Super easy. So this is Unity. It's our software where you can import the artwork and then file export to all different platforms. Okay. First, I'm going to show you the final result. The final result is here, plus play. And I'm going to load here. So I have my friend Yeti, and my Yeti friend likes mushrooms. So we're going to collect some mushrooms, jumping. And it's like an endless run that I could consider running around to get mushrooms. Okay. So we're going to recreate this. What I want to show you is here, in this viewport, is where we create our game. So here I can show you.
I noticed you had a flying bird in there. Was that influenced by anything?
Flappy Bird. So we're going to, first of all, create the environment. Okay. How we can place the objects in there, the artwork. Then we're going to focus on animation, like how we actually, where's my bird here? Okay. So there's a bird here. How we can actually import the bird animations in there. And then we're going to focus on our character walking around, jumping, and picking up mushrooms. Just going to recreate this. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to recreate this project. So we're going to open here a current project that's actually an empty slate, but it has just the artwork imported here. The artwork was made in software, Photoshop, but you can use other softwares too. So we're going to quickly open this here. And 1, 2, 3. So an empty project here. And along the way, I will explain the layout of the software. Okay. So here, the project folder is that where I import my Photoshop files. Just drag and drop in there, and they're here. So we're going to take here my platform, this image. Okay. My artist created. Actually, that's not true. What I did, I went to the Windows Store. We have here a store, the asset store called, and there we can buy content. Bought it. And I import it. Bought it for $25, and there I can start to make my game with. So I drag and drop here, the first element in here that I can see. This is my camera that shows how it looks in the final game. Just going to put that to perspective. And I go quickly to 3D mode. So now I can move my camera a little bit back and start to stage this. Go back in 2D mode. Take my other part of the platform and drag it in. There it is. Take the other one, the end. I have the end one here. And drag it in. That's how easy you can start to make your own game. So my camera, when I move it around, I might see some artifacts here because it doesn't know which one is rendering first, because everything is flat and they're overlapping. So what we're going to do quickly, I'm going to select the object here and say, well, render this one on top of those other ones. How do I do that? Here, the order of layer allows me to say, put that one up. So put a one up in the rendering, and nicely we have our first platform created. Okay, now let's add a 3 here to make it a little bit nice. So the mushroom here, we're going to put it here. I'm going to put it also 2 up, so it's nicely on top. I can scale it. Big mushrooms, small mushrooms. Yeah. And what we're going to do is here, we're going to add some trees to it. So we're going to go here, my tree. Nice tree here, drag it in. Okay, and scale it. You can also non-uniform scale it. You can even rotate it if you want an upside down tree. Okay. And there, and put it nicely there like this. Okay, cool. I want some backgrounds. All the artwork, I got it actually from the asset store. Okay, so there was nothing I produced or had to call for. So place it here, and put a little bit in the back. So -2. Okay. And I want to give it a little bit different tint because I want to match it nicely with the background blue color. How we change that? Click on the color, and I'm going to make it a little bit nice bluish color, nicely integrated now. Okay, let's duplicate that. So just simply Control D. I need to learn how to press 2 buttons at the same time. And there I have already my environment created. Take my camera and place it a little bit better in my scene. There we have it. Okay. Now I want that bird flying back and forward. Okay, cool, simple. I go here to the image bird. Okay. And I have it here, and I drag and drop that into my scene. Okay. And there it is. The problem is we have a whole collection of birds. I don't want that. I want one using all those different animations. Okay, let's do that. So we're going to delete it. That one image, I need to cut up each image. Boring job. And then make a script to play 1 by 1. In version 3, we changed that. How you do that? Instead of a single image, I will say actually multiple images. We're going to change that. Okay. So let's open our software, the built-in solution here. Open this. And now I can say, look, I'm going to cut this image. I can cut like images out, but I don't want that. What I'm going to do? Do it automatically. Slice. And now it cuts it for you, each image out already.
Easy.
Super easy.
Easy.
Yeah. Lazy.
Lazy. Easy.
I press apply, and there it is. So, and we close that menu. What I have here now, look at this. Each image is separate now. I don't want to start to make a script and say begin to play to end, all those things. No, really simple. I select the first one, select the last one, and drag and drop that into Unity in the editor. It's asking me, is that an animation? Yes. Save that as, yeah, I could type in flying. Let's zoom in here to that object. Okay, and I press play. And now what we're going to see is that the bird is nicely flying. Okay, I can easily quick as an artist. Okay? If you're an artist, easily quick animations adjustments. I can go in here, look at the timeline, speed it up, slow it down, replace the images, or make him fly faster. So press play, and there we have him flying much faster now. Okay, what we want to do is we want to make that object fly over the islands. Okay, go to there and goes back. So I'm going to create a placeholder for my object, and I'm going to say that bird is actually a child of that placeholder. Okay, I can easily rename it. I can call it a placeholder. Okay, and my spelling is not so good. Okay, So we're going to keyframe this. Super simple. You click on the word here, animation, click. And is that an animation you want to make? Yes, I want to make it moving. Okay. Now I have the timeline here. I'm going to zoom out on the timeline a little bit. Let's say to 5 seconds later, my bird, or maybe 3 seconds later, the bird should be here. So script in the timeline, and what we see is the bird is nicely flying here. Okay? I can actually press the play button to preview all the animations in one shot together, where I have the flying and the moving directly together. Now what we see is the animation loops, but I want the bird to fly backwards. Really simple. Select the bird, the game object here, and you see that position, that value from the beginning. I'm going to copy that, and I go to maybe 6 here. I'm going to copy that, that value there. I can adjust this nicely here. Look, and I scrub in the timeline, and what I see now is that the bird flies from one side, but sadly flies backwards. Okay. I can actually do that here in Animation 2. I can go in here and scale the direction of my object. I can say, ooh, like in that. But I'm not going to do that. I can do it through script. Why can I do it through script? You can. But the reason is, if I do changes to animations, maybe in code make my bird fly faster, slower, or do a lot of changes, I don't want to do the changes of the scaling animation. That the script automatically take care of that. Look here. I have a script. Flip it. An original name. Okay, scripts here. Super simple script. What we see is here. Transfer, local scale, and I'm going to scale it in the negative x. So each time I run this, evoke this function, it flips it. How do I apply a script to my object? Look, I drag it, and I just put on this object. With this object now selected, you see that the script is attached to it. You see it's component-based in Unity. Okay, now that function didn't evoke yet. I want to say when you want to run. Well, here, I can put in a timeline even. Click here at that frame, flip my bird, and here on the end of the animation again, flip it here. You can evoke the function directly on a frame in the animation. Okay, so the result is now very nicely have the bird flying from one side to the other side and flipping. So there he goes, and right, the other side. There he goes. Super simple. So far you have seen how easy it is to import artwork, create the environment, and you can go to our store for more artwork, and easy to do animations. Let's see a little bit physics and characters. Okay, so now I go here to my Yeti, and I have here each separate animation, each image from an animation. I'm going to take here my island animation, and I have exactly 6 frames, 6 images. So I select them all. Look how easy it is now. Drag them, drop in there again. And we call it idle. And he's standing still. Replace it, yes. Oh, he's a little bit too small. Well, we can scale it easily. There he is. You're going to move it. You're going to move it up here in maybe layer 3. Okay. And now what my character will nicely play that idle animation. Okay. So here, relaxed. Okay. What we're going to do is add some physics to it. So my character can fall, jump, okay, and collide with this island. Okay, so I take that character here, place it up. What we're going to add here is we're going to add physics 2D. For the people who have already worked with Unity, we have now fully the box physics integrated, box 2D integrated. So we're going to add here my rigid body to it. And if I'm going to press no play, what we're going to see is that our character will be, bye-bye, flying down. Okay? Gravity is applied to it. But it makes sure it can collide with our environment. Really simple. Look, select this object. We're going to add physics again to it. We're going to add a line collider. It's just an edge collider here. Very simple. Look, I can hold on Shift and add adjustment here. Do it nicely. There we have it already. I need a collider for my Yeti. Really simple. Add a component, physics 2D. We're going to add a circle collider to it. And I have a slider to adjust it so it nicely fits his body. Okay, cool. Let's test this. Press play. And what we're going to see, the Yeti will fall on the ground. There it starts. See? But when you look good, the Yeti starts to roll a bit. Okay?
He's a tired Yeti.
Yeah.
He works hard.
So what we're going to do is really simple. Actually, if you want to start in physics, to lock access, it becomes very difficult. That's why we love taking the pain for you out game development so you can enjoy it. And there's a little button here, fixed angle. Click that, and now when the Yeti falls, he will not roll. He will be excited to go get those mushrooms. See, there it is. Okay, cool. So now I can create here a little empty object as a placeholder for all my platforms that I want to duplicate. So we're going to select here 3 things, make it a child. Okay, and there we have already this. Zoom out, and we can copy that. Okay, nicely there. Place it here, maybe a little bit higher. Okay, there is another one, and I start to make my game. Okay, I'm gonna. That's it. So I can take the mushroom here, duplicate it too. It's pretty cool, eh? Okay, there it is. Okay, so we see how easy it was to deal with physics, but also with script, we can add more to the physics. We can move the character, make it jump. I made a simple script here. Okay, script. And I have to admit, before I joined Unity, I had never seen a variable even. So I learned about it, and I make my own games now, make my own scripts. So if I can do it, you can do it for sure. So we're going to look here, character start. It's really simple. Let's look at this. So if I press the button down, fire 1, this is really cool because it works multi-platform. If I press on my computer my fire button, what I'm going to do is the game has started. Okay? The game started will actually evoke that my character will have a velocity of 10 meters a second forward. Okay? And if I press the second time, if I press jump for the second time, then it's set to jump to true. Jump to true will add a velocity of a jump force. Oh, what is a jump force? Well, I declare that actually outside the script. And if I declare it outside the script, it becomes a slider. So my designer and programmer, for the first time in life, are happy and can work together. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I take that script, and I drag it onto my Yeti. Okay. So we'll look here. I nicely have my slider for my jump force. Okay, let's test the game. So let's play here. I'm in the game. Let's play. As I said, it's multi-platform. The really cool thing is, if you build that to your Windows phone, you just press the fire button on the screen. You touch the screen, and it works right away. Nothing to change. So click here, jump, and I click here, and I jump, just like I would jump. Okay?
It's Neil Armstrong Yeti.
I have magical powers. So what we're going to do, look, as a designer, wow, come on. This is like Carl energy. Let's bring it down a little bit down. Let's maybe do 300, okay? Let's see how Adam jumps. Okay?
What are you saying?
And click, and there. Adam just made it to the island.
I did play basketball in high school. Come on.
Okay, then we're going to give you 400 energy. Okay. So you see how easy it is on the fly to change. And you can work with the designer, you can ask in the community, and we have more than 2 million people in our community, ask to make a script, drag and drop on there. And then with the sliders, you can adjust it towards your values you want. Okay, now we want to continue, we want to make these animations. Okay, well, let me look here. My Yeti in the animator, not the Terminator, but the animator, what we see is it says idle. Animator defines what animation is playing at what time. Just controls it. So currently is the idle animation. But look here. I made my fall animation of my character. I have also the animations of jumping. Okay? All those images, I drag and drop in the scene already, and it creates an animation file. So look here, I have the animation file of running. I drag it in here. Okay? I drag and drop the animation jump. And drag and drop the animation land. And in between, of course, my character is falling. When you jump up, you're going to fall down. Okay? So I drag and drop all those animations in there. Now, the cool thing, look how easy to go from one animation to another animation. You right-click, make a transition. After playing the jump animation, I can go to the run animation. Okay, well, I'm going to I see here, where is my idle animation? I don't see it. Just going to make sure that I have the correct object selected here. My Yeti, oh, there's my idle animation. Sorry, I can drag and drop here my run animation again. Okay, and I can go from idle to run by clicking on it and say go to run. Play the animation idle and go to run. After running, we're going to go to the animation jump. Drag it in from run to jump. When I'm in the air, I will fall down, drag and drop the fall animation there, and we go to fall. From fall, we're going to land on the ground. Okay, and then from land, we're going to go back to running. Okay. We nicely can see which state is playing because I can select my Yeti, and I press play, and what we're going to see is, we see that our character, we're going to see a bar here that explains the idle, run, jump, fall, land. And we see that here visually too. Okay? But I want to define when my character will be landing, falling, and jumping. Okay, super simple. We can make some conditions. We can make like based on a trigger or a boolean or a float. Right, like a float, if I would take maybe my Xbox controller forward, that's the value that I can drive there. Okay, a trigger could be a button. Like in this case, I'm going to trigger a button here, and I'm going to call it say jump. But when I click jump, trigger called land, and a trigger called start. Now in code, I can activate those parameters. And I'm going to show you that later on. But here from idle to run, when would I go to idle to run? Well, when I trigger the word start. Then you should go change the animation. If not, just keep looping the idle animation. When will you go from run to jump? Super simple. When I click the button jump. When will I go from jump to land? Well, automatically. When will I go from land to fall? The moment I land. Now in code, I'm going to go to my Yeti. And here in the project, and I'm going to update the script with just 2 lines of code, or 3 lines of code. And take here, flip it with character final. In character final, look here. Okay, so I can show it here directly here. I can also show it in Visual Studio. Okay, but here you can see if I set the trigger when I land, I trigger the word land. When I press the button fire, and I go to let's say here in the code. So I press fire, and if the game starts, okay.
Let's do one thing real quick.
Okay.
That's from a plugin, which I'll talk about very shortly. I just want to go to the default here so you can see what the default editor is inside of Unity.
Okay. So by default, it's monodevelop, but you can also use, Adam said, Visual Studio, and he will be talking about later
Definitely.
on. Okay. And there it's opening, but I can actually keep showing just the code in Unity if you want. Okay. So scroll down here. So if I press the button fire here, if the game started, just trigger the word start. That's the only thing you have to do to change from animation. 1 line of code. Okay, let's do like this here. Press play. And what we're going to see, I'm going to select here my Yeti. So nicely playing the idle animation. I click, go to run, woo, jump. Okay, let's make our camera follow. How you do that? Super simple. You select the camera, and I drag it on my Yeti. There it is. Press play. And come on, Yeti, let's start the game. Let's run. Woo, yay. Okay, jump to the next level. Okay, what can I do to make it a bit more interesting? Go to my scene. Go out of 2D mode, and that's the beauty. Unity is 2D and 3D. So I can select the background, drag it here to the background. I'm going to both select them. And we can scale this a bit. Okay, cool. I'm going to go back to 2D mode. We can both duplicate them. Okay, now let's take another tree here, maybe this tree. Bring it in here. Scale it up. We're going to put that to maybe 5 up. And what we're going to do, back to 3D mode, we're going to bring it a bit closer to the camera. We nicely get our perspective. We don't need to script anything of our parallaxing going on. So duplicate, bring it here maybe. Okay, like here. Okay, cool. Let's see now the game in full action here. Press play. And there it is. Start. Ooh, yay! Jump. See, it starts to nicely be interactive. Okay. We can easily add our sound files then, and then easily make scripts to pick up the objects. Okay, so I can here take my character, and what we're going to do, we're going to add a component, add a script. Okay, pick up. Okay, and pick up as a little script. We're going to look at that. Okay, if on trigger enter 2D. Okay, so if I enter something, then pick up the mushroom. Okay, we're going to, for the moment, remove those here. Just going to destroy the mushroom if we pick it up. Okay. So my mushroom here, I'm going to give it a physics 2D, and a box collider. Okay. And we're going to say that actually that box collider is actually a trigger. So when I enter that zone, I should pick it up. Okay. In my script, I also said, I'm going to make it a bit smaller here. Okay. In my script, I said, only when I pick up the mushroom, and hack mushroom, because I could be picking up the bird otherwise. I don't want to eat the bird, I want to eat the mushroom. So look, I'm going to select all those 3 mushrooms, or first one, and we're going to add a tag here. I'm going to call it mushroom. Okay, select my mushrooms, all 3 of them, and say you have a tag, mushroom. I hope I spelled it correctly. Okay, and my character has a script in it, press play, and there we start the game. Click, pick up mushroom 1, pick up mushrooms 2. I forgot to put the collider on the mushroom. Really simple. I can just duplicate this one here. Duplicate this one, put it there, and delete. Delete, okay, and I'm going to duplicate again. Place it here. So now we can see how easy it is to place your characters, to place your artwork into a game. You can get it from our store, from the asset store. Make animations on it. Control the animations, and with script, make interactive gameplay to collect, like in this case, mushrooms. So the last thing I wanted to show you that you can go File, your Build Settings, and then export it to your Windows Phone 8. But this is all about Adam's specialty, and Adam will take over. Thank you so much for listening to me. And afterwards, I will be available for questions.
Okay. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So let's go ahead and save your changes. All right. Before we get back to slides, you talk about the asset store, and for me as a fairly newish Unity developer, the asset store is absolutely amazing. I'm not good with graphics. I'm more of the technical side, you know, that whole argument, one side or the other, rarely meet in the middle. So the asset store, if I want a zombie, if I want a monster, if I want Mr. Big Kim, I can come to the asset store and buy models, buy scripts. There's tons of free stuff in there too. Unity has published a lot of free stuff, free demo games. You can pick it apart, see how they work. I believe you can actually reuse some of the content from those games for your own game as well, for the free ones, as well as, of course, anything you purchase in there you can use in your own games. Very, very powerful.
Some people have published my demo games I made. I buy them. I support the community.
That's right. So how do we get here? How do we get on the cool devices, Windows Phone and Windows 8? Take Super Yeti. Wait, what did you call it? Yeti and the mushrooms?
Yeti and the mushrooms.
So that's your brilliance idea. You're sitting at home one night, 2 in the morning, you wake up like, aha, I thought of Yeti and the mushrooms. That's your great idea. Then you run Unity on Windows 8. You develop it, do all your testing inside of Unity. That's one of the powerful things. You can do your coding and your testing right inside of Unity before you then focus on a platform export for Windows Phone or Windows 8. Then Unity will export the project out to, it'll create a Visual Studio project. And you can open that in Visual Studio, for example, Ultimate, like our retail editions. You can use Visual Studio Express, the free version, to do it as well. And then from there on, it's the typical approach that we do on our applications. You can deploy out to your devices from Visual Studio. You can deploy out to a Surface, deploy it locally on your system, deploy it out to a Windows Phone, deploy it remotely to a device on the network. Now, you can do that from Visual Studio. You can actually deploy right to a phone from inside of Unity. But typically, the workflow I follow is Unity to Visual Studio to devices. From there, we package it up and send it to the store. Same process we always use there. And then you get all the happy users using your application, right? Right?
Correct.
So let's talk about how you export from Unity and a couple things to be aware of, and then we'll kind of dive in and look at that. Inside of Unity, they have a great multi-platform list. You select what platform you want to export to. Make that your default platform, Windows Store, Windows Phone 8. Then from then on, it's very important to test using a feature set of whatever you're going to deploy to. And what do I mean by that? Different hardware supports different graphics functionality. A Surface is a very different animal than a high-end gaming desktop system, right? They support different shaders in the hardware, very different graphic cards. So what you can do inside of Unity is you specify a DirectX emulation level. Now, it's probably not necessary for a simple game like we're creating today, but if you're grabbing 3D content off the net or writing your own shaders, it's always good to change these settings around in Unity to see if anything changes, and I'll show you those settings. And then we set our player settings, and this is just a way of saying we can set all of the information in Unity that pushes out to our manifest file. Think of your phone manifest file. Think of your package.apex manifest file. All those settings, like your name and your icon and splash screen, we can set those inside of Unity, so it creates a project with those already set for us. Then we just simply build. There's also a build and run. Build and run in Unity will deploy to a Windows Phone. Build and run for a Windows Store application will actually just build it, doesn't actually run it. So let's look at that process here inside of Unity. I'm going to take Carl's game here. This one I added, well, Carl added some sound to it. Let's see if we can hear it, what it's supposed to sound like. Can you guys hear that? Now, I do want to point out that that sound effect is Carl.
It's true.
It's true. So coming to our build settings, I'm going to change this over to, let's do Windows Store app. Now, that's our default platform. That's what we see here. And we have a couple different exports we can do, which I'll get back to in 1 second. The DirectX features level I was talking about, edit graphics emulation, and we can see here DirectX 911 shader model 2. That's synonymous to like a Surface device. You click on that, we don't see any changes here, which is a good thing. I'm not expecting to kind of see anything here. I don't see anything there either, so we're good. If I'm using, again, maybe I pull some really cool water package off the net or these metallic shaders, it's always good to test these levels to see if the hardware I'm going to deploy to supports it. And Unity does a great job of emulating those settings for us. So next, in my build settings, which is just File, Build Settings, or the same hotkey as Visual Studio, Control-Shift-B, you need to add on the scene that you want in your build. So we've got this scene right here. We just add it. That's going to be included in our build. If we have 100 scenes, we might not want every one in our build. Now that we have that, notice on the right-hand side here, we have 4 different types of projects that we can export to. DirectX project C++, DirectX project C#, XAML C++, XAML C#. Which one do you choose? If you say which one is more performant, they are very similar in terms of performance. If you like to do XAML and C# code and you think you might integrate something into this on the Visual Studio side, then choose this option. If you happen to really know and love DirectX and you want to access some lower level functionality, you would choose this function. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. I like this one here. And from then on, we can build and it will generate our project for us. But I want to show you some of the platform-specific settings here under Player Settings. Player Settings pops this up, and we can see all various platforms here, which equate to various platforms that we see on here. And we know that Windows Store applications, for example, have an icon. We know that they have a splash screen. And when you first look at these settings, it kind of fooled me too. I'm like, icon not applicable for this platform. I know there's an icon. I know there's a splash image. You just have to keep working down. All those settings are actually under publishing settings. And here, we can see your package name, all the images that you would generally assign inside of Visual Studio, you can set here. So we've got our logos, small logo, our splash screen, our colors, all of our capabilities. For example, if we're going to do location services like geolocation, or if we need to communicate with the internet, we need to check off Internet Client. Or if we're going to be running the Unity profiler, which I'll talk about later on, we actually need Internet Client as well. So once you've got all those settings done, you would build your application. However, there's one quick thing I want to show you. Who here loves creating all those multiple images? Like you get an icon, and you generate your splash screen, then you generate your store image, and you generate your tile, then this one, 150 by 150, 50 by 50, right? I thought there'd be at least one hand up. All right.
Okay, I will do it.
So one thing that we can do here is, I have a link to this little utility at the end. And I love it because it's great for prototyping, or if you want to use it for your final version. You take your square-ish icon, and note that you can go into Bing search for an image, and you can say, hey, find me a square image, of course. You want to make sure that you have the rights to any image that you use, or you can design your own. The idea is it should be square-ish. Drag and drop it. Voila. Logo, small logo, splash screen, store logo. Then you can take those, you can go into Unity and select all of your images that you want in there. You could go in and assign them in your Visual Studio project if you want. You do build, you create a folder, Windows Store Build, call that 3, and you say select folder, it builds and opens your folder. Just in the interest of time here, I've got the build already created here. Let's close out the one that opened up before. I'll talk about Visual Studio integration just a little bit, because you're probably wondering about it. And one of the things I want to add on to the platform, I like pause screens. I like if you switch away from an application and you go back to that application, I like it so you can see something that tells you, hey, we're paused. And so what we want to add to this version here is something that when we switch away from the app, when we have a Windows Phone app or Windows Store app, we go away, we come back, it's paused. So it doesn't just thrust us right back into the game. And we can do that actually very, very easily here. So what I've done is I have a pause screen here. I'm going to drag and drop that into the project, and a code file in C# called Screen Manager. Our pause screen looks like this. Now, in Unity, everything that Carl showed us is kind of this dynamic game actions. If we place a mushroom and we run past it, it goes out of view. There's what's called the GUI system inside of Unity. And the GUI system gives us things that, like a heads-up display, something that's visible to us at all times. Maybe a health bar, maybe our current score. And so no matter where we look, it kind of shows up for us. And so what I want to do is turn that pause screen into a GUI component. And I can take this pause screen, and I can go to the game object menu. And I want to mention game objects. Think of them in .NET. Almost everything stems from system.object, right? Think of the same thing in Unity. Almost everything stems from a game object. Everything in your scene, every single thing here is a game object, and a game object just has these few properties with it: a name, its position, rotation, and scale. So what I can do is highlight my pause screen, game object, create a GUI texture, and there we have it. It's there all the time, though. I don't want it there all the time. So what we have to do is use our code to say, hey, as soon as you start up, hide that image. And then when you detect someone has moved away from the application, show the image. And when someone hits escape, show the image to pause it. And when someone hits escape again, hide the image. And that Screen Manager script here, let me make sure I didn't change my editor again here. Perfect. So the Screen Manager script, it's in C#. And it's real basic. We simply say, because we inherit from mono behavior, there's some functions that are available to us. Awake, that we're going to use here, and we're going to use start and update. Awake gets called first, gets called once. Start then gets called after that. Update gets called every single tick. If your game is 60 frames a second, this gets called 60 times a second, your game loop. And so I'm saying when I wake up, I want you to hook into this window size change event. So if we snap our application to the side, we're going to pause. When this code starts up, find an object, not by name, but by tag. It's a typical process in Unity. You don't look for an object by name. You look for its string tag. Think in Visual Studio, we can assign a text tag to an object. Another way you can do it in Unity is by drag and dropping references ahead of time. We're going to use this to find by tag, and I'll show you the tags. And then we're going to hide it. And this is our code here that runs every single tick. If we hit escape, well, if we're paused, resume. If not, go ahead and pause. Well, as Carl showed earlier, in order to use this code, we have to assign it to something. So I'm going to create just an empty game object and call this screen manager. The name doesn't actually matter. But then I can take my code here, drag it right up there. Voila. Now we have something that uses our code. When I click play, oh, so notice it didn't go away because I said I'm finding my pause screen by tag. I haven't actually said that my pause screen has a tag of pause yet. So simple, what we need to do here. Notice under our tags, in Visual Studio we can just type a freeform tag. In Unity you actually have to define a tag. And these are the predefined ones here. Carl added a couple others. Simply go to add tag, and it's this interface here. You can just type in a tag name. So we're going to call this pause. Now we can go back to our pause screen, assign that tag, pause. Now when it starts up, it should find it because it's looking for it by tag, and it should hide it. There we go. I'm going to switch away, come back, it's paused. Now I didn't pause the sound. I think I have the code commented out in there intentionally so you can see I like a little background noise. And so this is the build that I created. So let's go over and see what was created on the Visual Studio side. By default, this is actually a good transition to talk about what happens when Unity builds your game. You can build over and over and over and over and over again. What happens to your Visual Studio project? Unity does not overwrite it. You can add your own custom code to that. The only thing Unity will overwrite is your data folder. That's where it stores all of its own stuff. So this is cool. Add your own code, doesn't get overwritten. The downside, not even a downside, just something to be aware of, is if you go in later and specify images and settings inside of Unity, they won't get pushed out to your project. You'll either have to manually merge them using some sort of compare tool like Beyond Compare, or you can actually go in and just manually set the properties in your Visual Studio project itself. So Visual Studio will default on a Windows Store build to ARM. It's assuming you're going to automatically deploy out to like a Surface tablet. So that's something to be aware of because it gets a lot of people the first time. You need to change it to x86, and I'll show you that. Secondly, as Visual Studio developers, .NET developers, we're used to debug and release builds, right? Now there's a new build in there for this platform called master. Release is not your release build that's going out to production. That's actually your master build. Debug has the most amount of debug information. Release, most of the debug information is stripped out, but still has profiler support. There's a profiler in Unity. And master is the one that you're going to want to build and send up to the store. Now, on your Windows Phone projects, you can use the emulator. Nothing different there. But because it's a virtual machine of Windows Phone, something to be aware of, it uses the Warp software rasterizer. And so it might support things in your emulator that the actual device that you're going to test on doesn't support. So it's just something to be aware of. And the simulator in Windows 8 will show you what your current system supports. It's not an emulator. It's a simulator. It uses a feature of Windows 8 called Child Sessions, which is actually essentially a form of remote desktop. It remote desktops back into your local system. That's what your simulator is. So it allows you to scale to different resolutions. Great for testing, but I still highly recommend testing on devices. All right, now let's talk about what we can do to integrate for the best experience. We're going to build in the Visual Studio. Why would we want to add anything else onto that? Right? We've got our game. We can just deploy it out to the store, and you can. But in order to get the best experience, you want to use platform-specific features. You want to call in a rich Windows API, things like customizing your live tiles, adding live tiles. If the user wants to review your application, launching them off to be able to review that. Networking code, if you want to integrate with Azure, Azure Mobile Services, right? You can add this code into your Visual Studio project. Geolocation in WinRT, like 2 lines of code, real easy to integrate. And of course, we have thousands and thousands of NuGet packages. So let's go ahead and look at our default Windows Store build here. Notice, it's ARM. So if I run this right now, I'm not on an ARM system, it's not going to work. Easy fix, configuration manager, we change it to x86. And you're probably wondering, well, do you really have a 32-bit system? No, this is a 64-bit system. The Unity, they've provided 2 players. They have an ARM version, and then they have a 32-bit version. They don't have a 64-bit version of the player. Now remember that Unity is a native code game engine. It's written in C++. So as such, they have to do native code builds for ARM, and they have to do native code builds for x86. .NET developers typically do any CPU. You can run it anywhere. Because we're dealing with native code, that's why we have to do each platform here. So I'm going to do x86 and run that. And then we should see Yeti and the mushrooms. I swear I'm going to have a band name called that. There we go. Switch away from it. Go back. There's our pause screen. Works as I would hope it to work. Now let's take it a step further. Let's kind of integrate some platform-specific features into there. And what we can do, I'm going to go into my app.xaml.c#, and there's an event in here. After the splash screen is removed, I'm going to go ahead and update the live tile. Template code, we've all seen this code before. And also, I'm going to add in my actual live tile that I'm going to update here. Now, it probably is important to note that I'm doing this purely on the XAML side, in the C# side in the Visual Studio project. What you can also do is you can integrate with Unity's events. So you can have an event defined in Unity, and that gets raised in Unity, and the Visual Studio side, your Visual Studio project hooks into that. So the two can actually talk back and forth real basic, easy.
Yep.
Would you call it easy?
Super easy.
I would call it super easy. Let me drag my image in here, and we can show you what this looks like. Add on, not my pause screen, Adam. We want 3 times fun. Triple mushrooms better than 1 mushroom. That's what my grandmother always said. All right, she didn't say that. All right, let's build this and run it. I'm going to actually pin this to my start screen as well. That's already pinned. Perfect. Yes, that is my start screen. I like it active, right? I like to see things that keep me updated. Live tiles that flip things around. A lot of games don't integrate with live tiles, and I think it's something that can really catch the user's attention there. Even if it's not fully dynamic and flipping, like Cut the Rope tells you how many stars you've got in the game. So let's go ahead.
You didn't play much yet in the game.
Funny story, my son played a game on my phone the other day, posted out to Facebook accidentally. Someone posted something else saying, you know, I beat your score by like 2 million, and I wrote, you just beat my 3-year-old. All right, so there's a game here. Now notice, our tile here has just flipped. So with just a few lines of code, basic MSDN type sample, we've got a live tile that's updated. And you can entice the users to come back into your game. Come back for 3 times the points for a short time only. Now on the Windows Phone side of things, same type of thing. You go into the build settings in Unity. You set your properties, which I'll show you. Let's go back to Unity real quick. Switch your platform over here to Windows Phone 8. The one minor thing to be aware of is in your player settings, there's far fewer settings. Oh. Interesting. I see it on mine. Let's try to Alt-Tab a little bit.
Would you refresh it? Yeah.
Weird. There we go. Hardware. That's why I'm a software guy. So our game here, you can specify that your default orientation is going to be landscape right, for example. And then the image, the one minor got you with the Windows Phone builds is you don't specify your image in here. You actually have to specify your image in your Visual Studio project, which is different than the Windows Store solution where you can specify all your images here. Windows Phone, you have to specify it on the Visual Studio side. So there's our game, Visual Studio. We've exported out to Windows Phone. Now notice performance is a little jittery. Again, it's an emulator. So the idea is you want to eventually test on a real piece of hardware.
Yep.
So next, one of the questions that folks ask me a lot. Well, can we use Visual Studio? MonoDevelop was used by Unity because it supports multiple platforms easily. So Unity uses a soft debugger. Internally, it sent commands and executes things against the code base. There's a plugin that they've written in MonoDevelop that kind of controls that and sends commands back to Unity. So Visual Studio by default does not have that. So we can use Visual Studio as a code editor, and you can specify that in Visual Studio. You do not, however, get your debugging experience. You can't just attach the process because you don't have anything to interact with that soft debugger. So what you can do, let me show you the preferences, external tools. Right here, MonoDevelop is the default. You can browse and find Visual Studio. So that's one way you can use it. You can get some IntelliSense on there. But again, you cannot integrate for the full debugging experience. Now, there is a third-party product called Unity VS, which allows you to use Visual Studio to debug and develop. You click play in Visual Studio, click play in Unity, and bam, you're debugging your code. It works really well. You can also use Visual Studio to debug after your build, and I'll show you that in 1 second. And Unity Pro version supports profiling. They have a very powerful profiler, lets you see where there's some performance issues inside of your game. So I'm going to add this to, let's do this on my Windows Store build. I've already exported. I've already done my build from Unity. And what you can do, let me open up the right folder here. Unity will generate a project, so you can come in here and say add existing project. Assembly C#-VS, Visual Studio. You can add this project. Now you can come in here and see all of your code that you wrote for your Unity game. And now you're essentially debugging it on the platform. I can run it now on my local machine, or I can do the same thing for the Windows Phone version, debugging my Unity code as I've deployed to my final platform. If you make any changes on the Unity side, though, you have to do this whole build process again, because there's a lot of optimizations that Unity does behind the scenes to generate this information and to generate all these assemblies. So you can't just make one change on the Unity side and have this working. You've got to do your build, do the same thing again here and run it. But once you are, I used this just the other night to debug a joystick issue. It works well. I just note it takes a little bit longer this way. So publishing, there's not too much different here than essentially that's been around for a while. There's just a couple things to be aware of. You build in Visual Studio. You run your tests. So run your tests for phones or Windows App Certification Kit for your Windows Store apps. Windows Phone 8, same thing. You upload your ZAP file to the store. You're done. Easy enough. Now, on Windows 8, because we have different devices that can run on Intel-based hardware and ARM-based, for the same reason I said before on how Unity supports different builds, they've built their native code for ARM and for x86. You have to create your separate builds. You go into Visual Studio, you have to select ARM, do your build. Go into Visual Studio, select x86, do your build. Upload both of those packages so folks on either devices can find your game and use your game. With a game, you're going to want to ensure that touch on a phone is supported if it makes sense. If it's just a video app, then I guess it doesn't make too much sense, although maybe touch controls would. But most games, right, they have some sort of touch interaction. Now, for Windows Store applications, typically, we'd like to see games that support both touch and keyboard. If you can't support one or the other, typically you want to note that during your app submission so it won't get rejected. You definitely need to note that, though. And I can't stress this enough. Deploy to real devices for testing. The simulator can only do so much. An emulator can only do so much. It's real important, and I'll show you a link at the end on where you can get some phones for testing. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't wait to see what kind of stuff you guys make. The game field is phenomenal. There's so much creativity and so many cool things, especially now how platforms are integrating together. Like when you get a Surface tablet, somebody's doing something with a game on Windows Phone, and something else is running on Xbox. It is absolutely amazing. And there's been so many cool games created so far with Unity that run on Windows Phone and Windows Store. Unity has a gallery on their site where you can go and check out some of these games. You can actually run some of them inside of the browser because they have a web plugin. You can check them out right there as well. And here's some resources. We integrate very tightly with Unity. We work with them all the time. We have a great partnership, and we're always supporting the platform. The engineering teams work together. So there's a page out there, unity3d.com/pages/windows. And on that site, we list current offers that we have going on. For example, if you already have games on existing platforms, and you want to bring them to the platform, and there's different prizes you can get, check out that page. But also, probably more importantly for me, there's getting started documents on there and porting guidance documents on there as well. So you can go on there and kind of read about the basics of using Unity on Windows Phone, Windows 8. There's a great community out there. You guys have an awesome forum out there with a great format. Almost any question you can type into your search engine and it will come up in your Unity forums. The Unity Asset Store is phenomenal. Some of my favorite add-ins, there are so many add-ins. I probably purchased way more than I actually use, but Unity VS, because I'm a Visual Studio developer, I really like Unity VS. I can integrate with Visual Studio. Prime 31, write some plugins for Windows. So maybe I don't want to spend all the time to write and test code. You can buy a plugin, add it to Unity, and then you can support in-app purchases, et cetera. You can also write that same code yourself. I just want to let you know. But some folks like to just purchase something ahead of time. You know, right around the .NET ecosystem, there's a huge community of plugin providers and components that you can buy. Same thing in Unity. And there's a multi-platform toolkit, which makes it real easy to target multiple platforms. Now, people say, where can I get a phone to test on? And that's easy to answer. Nokia has a program called Develop. If you go to develop, developer.com/loan, you can go on there and select from a bunch of different phones, even some of the brand new phones. They will ship it to you for 2 weeks to test out your game on. Postage paid, send it back. It's an awesome program to check out. And that other program I showed you earlier where you can drag and drop your images onto and it generates them for you, that's aka.ms/WSIP, Windows Store Image Processor. And please don't forget your evals. We have the Code Challenge booth out there. I listed Quick Start challenges. There is a Unity demo on there if you want to go and get your hands on with Unity. You can check that out over at the Code Challenge booth area. And tomorrow there's some expert one-on-one time where you have, I think, downstairs in some of the rooms. I'll be manning, I think, around 4 o'clock. For gaming there, so if you have any questions you want to talk about then, or just reach out to me by email. And Carl, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam, so much, and thank
all
you
of you
to come here and to listen to me and see how you can make games later on. I'm excited, and I can't wait to see your games.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, man. Awesome.